everyone. My name is Piyush Sachdeva, and in this video, we'll be talking about distributed builds in Jenkins, how we can set it up, what are the different components of it, pros and cons of using it, and what are the best practices of using distributed build in a production grade environment. If you are new to my channel, please hit the subscribe button below and the bell icon to get notified about all my upcoming videos. This is the fifth video in the series of Jenkins tutorials for beginners. If you are new to Jenkins, I'd suggest to have a look at that and then continue with this video. I'll put the link in the description section below as well as in the title bar. So let's get started. First of all, let's try to understand the basics of distributed build and an example of how it is visualized, and then we'll discuss more about it. Let's say we have a Jenkins master running on a separate server, and we have a set of VMs hosted on Azure Cloud. When we install Jenkins agent on each of those VM, those agents establish a bidirectional communication between the machine and the Jenkins agent using the TCP/IP protocol. The first server can be treated as a separate node, so let's call it node 1. And the same way, second server can be treated as node 2. The same way, let's say we have two Ubuntu based machines which are hosted on AWS cloud. Again, we can install Jenkins agent on each of those, and those Jenkins agents set up bidirectional communication with Jenkins master using the TCP/IP protocol, and we call it node 3 and node 4 respectively. The same way, we can have it installed on a on-prem server. Let's say this is the on-prem server that we have and Docker engine is already installed on it, and we install Jenkins agent on that machine to set up the communication with Jenkins master, and then Docker containers can be used as separate nodes. So this is the minimalistic Jenkins master slave architecture. Let's see how distributed builds actually work. Let's assume Jenkins has multiple tasks to be executed. Instead of running everything on Jenkins master itself, it distributes the workload among all the nodes that it has. So let's say task 1 can be assigned to node 1, task 2 can be assigned to node 2. So those two tasks will run on Windows based machine. Task 3 and task 4 will be assigned to node 3 and 4 respectively, and task 5 and 6 can be run on these Docker containers. So in this way, Jenkins distributed the workload among all the available agents and nodes, and it just manages those tasks and they report back the status and the logs to Jenkins master itself. It has lots of benefits and we'll discuss that in detail as well, but this is how distributed build work in Jenkins. So let's have a look at the distributed builds in more detail. Distributed builds run on nodes rather than the built-in Jenkins master node to increase the performance. Agent that runs on node manages the task execution on behalf of the Jenkins master. The Jenkins master manages these nodes to do the actual build work. Different nodes can run different operating systems and different tools, enabling one pipeline to build and test the same software for a variety of platforms and environments. All production Jenkins instances should run distributed builds. The standalone Jenkins installation, or if we are running Jenkins builds on the Jenkins master itself, it's not recommended for the production workload. This is just for the test purpose or just to execute a specific task. Let's have a look at the different type of distributed builds or different type of master slave architecture that we have. First one is single master multi-slave. Let's say we have a Jenkins master and there are multiple slaves attached to it. Slave 1, slave 2, slave 3. There can be thousands of slaves and they are connected with the TCP/IP protocol with the Jenkins master. So this is how single master multi-slave architecture looks like. Then we have the other type of architecture which is multi-master multi-slave. In this, there are multiple master and multiple slaves. Each Jenkins master represents a project or a line of business. Let's say if we are in banking sector, so one Jenkins can be used to serve all the bills, all the projects within capital markets, and the other Jenkins can be served for all the projects in retail banking. Let's see the different benefits of using distributed builds. Scalability, which means agent can be added as required. Running builds on agents make the Jenkins instance more scalable. If you do not have enough resources to run your builds, just add more Jenkins agent. Otherwise, you will need to create an entirely new set of Jenkins masters to support the build. Then we have security. Running jobs on separate and isolated machines mitigate the risk of someone accessing the restricted data from Jenkins master. So jobs that run on a controller or a Jenkins master has full permission to all the Jenkins resources on the master node. For even greater security, you can use cloud agents or the Docker based agents that are created for each build and then destroyed when the build is over. This way, if a malicious agent taints the node or executor, no other build will be affected. Specialized nodes. This allow you to build and test on multiple operating system and different CPU architectures while using different version of JDK and other tools. Each node can be configured with only the tools that is needed for build and test to be run on it. For example, you might consider JDK 8 and Apache Maven on one Linux node or configure JDK 7 and Gradle on a Windows node. So tools are directly installed on the nodes, and you can also define Docker Kubernetes container that contain the required tools and are installed on the node itself. Pipeline then access this node by using a label that is configured for the node. One master can orchestrate thousands of builds a day by distributing the build load for better resource utilization. Let's have a look at the components of distributed build. So we have a Jenkins master where the actual Jenkins service is running. And then we have a node. Let's say this is hosted on a Windows based virtual machine. So this is node. When we install Jenkins agent on machine to set up the communication with Jenkins master using a TCP/IP protocol, this particular thread is called as agent, which actually executes the tasks. Then a virtual machine or a server can have multiple CPUs or multiple cores, and each CPU can be treated as a separate executor. If it has like 4 CPUs, so there are 4 executors in this particular architecture, and each executor can be used to execute a particular task, and we can run 4 tasks in parallel. So these are all the components of distributed build. First one is master, Jenkins master, or we can call it controller as well. This is the Jenkins service which acts as a brain and decide where, when, and how things needs to be done. It basically performs the management and admin tasks such as backup, login, role-based access control, etc. Then we have node. They are the actual machines on which build agents run. Jenkins monitor resource utilization of each node, and a node is taken offline if any of these values go outside the configured threshold. Then we have executor. So it is a thread in the agent. The number of executor on a node defines the number of concurrent tasks that can be executed on that node at one time. Agents are the lightweight Jenkins instance that runs on different nodes. They manages the task execution assigned by Jenkins. Now let's have a look how we can create different nodes and install Jenkins agent on those to establish a bidirectional communication between Jenkins master and the nodes. So for that, let's do some prerequisite check to make sure we have everything in place. So first, go to manage Jenkins section over here and make sure the Jenkins URL is correct in the place. So I'll go to manage Jenkins and then go to configure system. And if you scroll down a bit, you will see the Jenkins URL. Make sure it matches with the Jenkins URL that you have. So when you restart AWS EC2 instance, this public IP gets changed. So make sure you don't have any discrepancies like that. Then the next thing is you go back to the manage Jenkins again and you go to configure global security over here and scroll down a bit and make sure you have the agent communication port enabled. So this is the port on which Jenkins master will communicate with the agent. So it could be either fixed, random, or disabled. Okay, so I have set it as 50,000 fixed Jenkins port. Now let's go back to our EC2 console. So I have created two Ubuntu based servers, server 1 and server 2, and they both have that port 50,000 enabled. 50,000 is enabled, and the same is there in Jenkins master as well, because this will be bidirectional communication. So make sure you have it open for both the server as well as the master, right? So these were the prerequisites check. Now let's go to Jenkins homepage, and you see over here there are two options. One is a build queue. So if there is a build that is already running, it should be visible from here. And this is the build executor status. So build executor status is nothing but the number of executors that are available for the Jenkins master. So in this Jenkins server that I have, I don't have any agents running right now. So these executors are part of the Jenkins master. So in this Jenkins master, I have two executors, 1 and 2. And how we can check that? You could click over here, build executor status. Okay, and this is the Jenkins master. If I click over there, go to configure. So you see number of executors are 2. So if you remember in the previous slides, I have shown you the number of executors should be equal to the number of CPU cores. This is a best practice. So if I go back to my Jenkins master and scroll down a bit, so you see number of vCPUs are 4 in the Jenkins master. That means I can have 4 executor and that should be fine. That would not impact the performance of Jenkins. So let's just keep it 2 for now. Okay. And then I go back to the node section again and click on new node. I'll give it a name. Let's call it server 1. Enable this permanent agent box. Click OK. And now it will ask you different configurations. So name is server 1. I'll give the same description. Number of executor, it's again asking for the executor on the agent. By default it is 1, but we can set to a maximum of, I mean, we can set any number of executor, but it is recommended to set as per your vCPUs. So in my servers as well, like server 1 and 2, there are 4 vCPUs. So let's just keep it 4 executors over here. Then this would be remote root directory where all the Jenkins agent logs will be stored on the server itself. So I'll give it a path. It's called home Ubuntu Jenkins. And then I'll give this a label as well. Let's give the same label as the name of the agent. Now in usage, there are two options. Use this node as much as possible and only build job when label expressions matching this node. So this is really important. If you use this node as much as possible, that if you don't specify any agent in any of the job, it could pick any of the available agent. It could run the job on any of the agents that are available. So make sure you use this. Only build job with label expression. Only build job with label expressions matching this node. That means when we explicitly defines label server 1 on the job itself, only then it will trigger the job on this particular agent. Okay. Then we have launch methods. So there are different launch method by which we can start our agent. First is by connecting it to the controller. That means we run a particular command and a jar file on the Jenkins slave machine on the Jenkins node, and then it will connect to the Jenkins master. The next is the other way around, which is you execute some command on the Jenkins master and it will connect to the Jenkins agent. And the third one is launch agent via SSH. So you establish a SSH connection, you share the public and private key, and it will authenticate you. So there is a problem with this approach via SSH. It's because, when you are working in a multinational corporation and enterprise level organization, direct SSH access to the servers are blocked. Sometimes you use a jump server or a bastion host to log into a server. So if that is the case, then this method would not work. So that is why I won't recommend this. And the one that we'll be using is launch agent by connecting it to the controller. So I'll select this one and I'll keep the rest of the fields as default and click on save. Once you do that, so this will show you that you have created this node, but it is currently disconnected. There is no connection that has been established. So if I click on that, so it says you can connect agent to the Jenkins in one of these ways. So what we need to do over here is we need to copy this command and run it over the slave machine. Okay, so that it could establish a connection to the Jenkins master. And for that, we need this agent.jar file as well. So this is the agent, the lightweight Jenkins agent that will be running on that slave machine. So I'll click on that and download this file over here. And then using WinSCP or any other SCP client, I can transfer this to the server itself. So I'll just take the IP from here, public IPv4 DNS, and then I'll paste it over here. I have already inserted the key over here. So if I go to edit settings and if I go SFTP, so I have already imported the .ppk file over here for the authentication. Okay, so I'll just have to provide the host name, username is Ubuntu, and port is 22 for SSH, and then I hit enter or quick connect. Then this is the connection is successful. This over here is the remote side. That means a server on which Jenkins agent will be installed. Okay, so I'll just transfer the agent.jar file over here. So this is over here in my local machine. I'll transfer it over here. Okay, it's been transferred. Now let's go back to that agent machine. I'll open a new putty session. Let me increase the font size as well. Okay, disable the bull and paste the host name over here. Hit enter. Login as Ubuntu. Now if I do ls over here, my agent.jar file is here. So let me just provide permissions to this file. Okay, and it's done. Now what I'll do, I'll copy the command from the server itself, which is this one, and make sure you run this in a background mode so that if you close this session, it will keep on running. So for that, I'll append ampersand at the end. Okay, and if you want to have a look at this command, so it has this is exploding that agent.jar file, and the JNLP URL, this is the Jenkins URL which it would connect to. The secret is a one-time encrypted password generated by this, and this is the work directory. Before doing this, let me just create a work directory with the same path, which is home Ubuntu Jenkins, and I'll copy the agent.jar file to this directory. Okay, I'll just clear the screen again, and now I'll run this command and add ampersand at the end. Once I do that, it will show the agent as connected. And if you go back to your Jenkins screen and hit refresh, you see agent is connected. And let's go to the nodes again. You'll see one is the master node which is connected, then this is the server, and this will show you the detail of the agent node as well. So this is a Linux machine, and the clock difference, the time zone is in sync. This is the free disk space, this is the free time space. And over here now you'll see earlier it was just 2 executor for built-in node. Now there are 4 executor for this agent node as well. So this is what we have done so far, and there are few other things that you can do with this. So there is a node monitoring section. If you click on that, this is the threshold that you have predefined. So let's say if the free space on any of the nodes will go beyond 1 GB, then it will disconnect the node from the connection. Yeah, basically that's it. And I'll pause the video for a few minutes and I'll create another node for server 2 as well, following the same steps that we just did. All right, I have followed the same steps again, and this time I did it for server 2. So now I see the server 2 is also connected. And if you see at the build executor status, you see built-in node, server 1, 4 executor, and server 2, 4 executor. So that means we have installed our agent successfully. Now let's test if they are working fine or not. So I'll go back to my Jenkins dashboard and just create a sample job. Let's call it test agent, select the freestyle project, click OK. So I'll basically just print a hello statement just to describe between both the jobs. So let's use restrict when this project can be run. So in the general section itself, there is an option restrict where this project can be run. So over here, we are specifying where this project needs to be run. If I do that and provide label over here, let's call it server one. Okay, so I have selected it to run on server one only. It won't run this build on any of the agent, even though they are available because we have explicitly specified it over here. Okay, so let's just use a simple step, execute shell. I'll just simply run the Unix command hostname so that will print the IP hostname -i, apply and save. Now let's hit on build now. So this is done. Let's see the console output. So IP is 172.31.46 and 12. Let's just see if it is matching with the server 1 IP. So this is server 1. If I do hostname -i over here, this is 172.31.46.12, which is the same one. The same way we can run it on other agent to verify it, but this is how distributed build works. This is how you can set up master slave architecture in Jenkins. So there are some best practices also that you need to keep in mind. First is this I have already mentioned as well. You need to make sure that number of executor on Jenkins master itself is 0. So how you can check that? You go to this built-in node, click on configure and update this to 0. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you have learned something out of it and it was helpful to you. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe the channel to get notified about all my upcoming videos. Have a good day and I'll see you very soon with the next video. Thank you very much for watching.